When you're at your home park and you see an empty plot of land, you can only imagine what they're gonna put there. Hopefully the coaster can be fun, overall intense, and just be among the best. Typically when a park's building a new coaster, they have to work on flat land. Other times there can be a lot more restrictions, like they have to work in a more compact space. It's difficult but still manageable. In some rare circumstances, a roller coaster can be built in an unorthodox location, inside trenches, going through a sprawling forest. These are called terrain coasters. These attractions are by far the most visually appealing rides you can ever see. The entire idea of a terrain coaster, they take the natural surroundings and adapts it into the ride's layout. Terrain coasters can go above, below ground, can dive off ledges, and in some cases, these rides are cheaper than coasters built on flat ground. Because they rely so heavily on the terrain, these coasters are almost always at ground level, which means they use less supports, which in terms means they cost less money. So today in G.A.C. Top 10, I'm going to be looking at the top 10 terrain coasters. Now unfortunately, there are a lot of terrain coasters I just couldn't include because obviously there are only 10 spots. I was pulling my hair out just thinking of the arrangement. There are just so many spectacular terrain coasters, and I didn't feel like shortchanging any of them. So I have a few honorable mentions I want to point out just to let you know the thought was there, I just could not include all of them. Oh, and one last thing, I'm not going to be mentioning any mountain coasters just because I'm working on an entire different video devoted to that. So the first honorable mention is the Voyage. Yeah, I know, I'm kicking off a pretty big coaster, but just hear me out. The terrain aspect is more catered to the forest, how it just goes out and back. You got the first portion of the ride with the massive airtime hills going towards Thunderbird, the second part with the massive twister section until you hit the triple down, which brings you into the third part, which is the return back to the station, all while you're enclosed by the forest, which can make a legendary night ride. The reason I'm not including this one, it's just because when you compare this to the other coasters on the list, the other ones have a lot more mountainous settings, so this pales to comparison in my opinion. Okay, the next mention is the Ultimate at Lightwater Valley. This coaster definitely uses the terrain to its advantage, staying low to the ground the entire time. Still, as far as terrain goes for the ride, it's pretty boring as hell. Just flatlands and valleys. Just gentle turns and straight track. I'm pretty sure the UK has a lot more to offer than this. Just 7,000 feet of hugging the ground nothing. Next is the Loch Ness Monster at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. First things first, Busch Gardens, amazing park, super gorgeous. The setting is nothing I've ever seen before. The reason I'm not featuring the Loch Ness is because I just feel the coaster relies more on its supports rather than just adapting the overall terrain. Still, this coaster is so photogenic. Final mention is Wild Eagle at Dollywood. I would have included Wild Eagle because it's situated on a hillside. It's just, I think a different coaster from this park is more deserving to be on the list over a B&M Wing coaster. So finally, with all the honorable mentions out of the way, let's finally start off with number 10 with the Beast at Kings Island. Opening in 1979, the Beast takes up 35 acres of land. Not only is the Beast today the longest wooden coaster in the world, it held the record for longest coaster for 12 years until the Ultimate in 1991 took the record. It was built entirely in-house from Kings Island. They didn't have any extra help from an outside manufacturer. What is so remarkable about the Beast is just how they constructed it. Keep in mind, the 1970s weren't really known for their home computers. All 7,300 feet of the ride had to be designed and calculated by hand, and what certainly wasn't helping was the terrain of the area. Kings Island consisted of cliffs, ravines, hills, all variables that had to be accounted for. Sure, they could have just leveled the land entirely, that way they wouldn't have to do any extra work, but they didn't. Still today, the Beast is one of Kings Island's most popular roller coasters. Even after 40 years, there is nothing like going into the pitch black woods, watching the park disappear until you hit the second chain lift, at the same time diving through tunnels and the grand finale 540-degree Helix. Number 9, Helix at Liseberg. Mack rides have been on a roll lately. Starting from Blue Fire at Europa Park, all the way to their newest installations, Helix is still arguably the best. Built on a hillside, Helix is a centerpiece of Liseberg. During construction, they had to weave Helix between a bunch of other existing attractions, their S&S Screaming Swing, Drop Tower at Lisebergbanen. Another issue for construction, they had to build this on hard ground, so an additional 40 million Swedish kronor, or 4.7 million US denomination, was strictly used for rock blasting. Rock blasting's a method they use to clear the land and actually allow them to install the foundations for the coaster. Helix definitely paid off. This 62.1 mile-an-hour launch coaster is in a gorgeous scenery with an amazing backdrop of Gothenburg, Sweden. Number 8. Boulder Dash at Lake Compounce. Lake Compounce is the oldest park in the US, opened in 1846, and yet they don't really have that many coasters. They got a Boomerang clone, a Skyrocket 2 clone, really not that much. Good thing they have Boulder Dash. Opening in 2000, Boulder Dash resides on a hill. The beginning part of the ride, is obviously basic. It goes up the chain lift, climbing the hillside, then completely hugs the ground, makes a turn, and goes down a 115-foot drop. At this point, a section of the ride is completely hidden from guest view, traversing airtime hills, climbing up and down the mountain as it voyages back to the station. Boulder Dash is truly the saving grace of this park. I mean, when the park only has 2 clone coasters, a historic coaster from 1927, there is no competition that Boulder Dash is number 1, and there is some credibility to the quality of Boulder Dash. 1 year after it opened in 2001 and 2004, it won the Golden Ticket Award for Best Wind Coaster. I mean, the Golden Ticket Awards, they don't usually make the best call for what is number 1 and what isn't. Still, it's a nice tidbit about the ride. Number 7. Alton Towers Nemesis. As we know, Alton Towers, they are constricted by their height limit. They cannot build past the tree line. They cannot go past that. So how does the park compensate? They build down. Nemesis, they had to dig a ton of trenches that the coaster constantly weaves through, and it only comes out of the ground for a few individual elements. When it was built back in 1994, they picked the tallest tree on the hillside, and that's how high the coaster went. Nemesis is only 42.6 feet, not even 50 feet. Yet it has a 104-foot drop. However, I'm assuming they're calculating when it hits below ground level, because looking at the POV, it has a tiny dip into a corkscrew before it actually goes into the rest of the layout. But either way, Nemesis is everything I love about Alton Towers. They always find a new way of doing things, building a coaster that may be unusual, maybe one we've never heard of before. These coasters aren't record breakers, but they give us an experience that keeps drawing us back. Although Nemesis, it does have one record from back in 2004, but I'm not going to be talking about this record for too long in fear of demonetization, because this record is pretty strange, so I'm gonna let you guys look that up for yourself, or don't. And for some reason, the UK tried to break this record a few times. But anyway, let's get back to terrain coasters. Number 6. The Eagle Fortress at Everland. South Korea used to be home to one of the few aero-suspended coasters that were ever in operation. Unfortunately, like some aero-suspended coasters, they went defunct. 2009 would be the last year of operation for Eagle Fortress. Soon after, it would be SBNL from 2009 till 2015, then completely demolished. There is no official reason why Everland closed Eagle Fortress. The likely scenario why Eagle Fortress closed was because the company that built Eagle Fortress in 1992, Aerodynamics, went defunct in 2002. After that, they may have not acquired the parts they needed to keep the coaster operational. That is the same reason why the Big Bad Wolf at Busch Gardens Williamsburg closed, and since the park they never gave a statement why it closed, that is the most likely option. But closed or not, I just had to include Eagle Fortress. The entire coaster is built on a mountain. Now, we do not know the height of the coaster, but just looking at the ride, I would assume it's bigger than most aero-suspended coasters. The coaster does not have any major first drop. The entire ride is gradually picking up more speed through S-bends, sharp turns, as it tries to go to the bottom of the mountain. It only has like a few upward helixes to level out before the ride immediately picks up speed again. What's great about the ride is how many near-miss elements there are. Again, because it's an aero-suspended coaster, it's constantly whipping back and forth, and Eagle Fortress appears to be a lot more aggressive. This top 10 would be nothing if I didn't mention this coaster. Number 5. Phantom's Revenge at Kennywood. Now here is a coaster with a colorful background. Opening in 1991 as Steel Phantom, the coaster featured 4 inversions. Although during the 1990s, the coaster became very uncomfortable, so the fine folks at Morgan took the old Aero coaster, and during the 2000 off-season, the ride became Phantom's Revenge, removing all the inversions and just replacing them with airtime hills. Of course, that's just some background knowledge on Phantom's Revenge. Let me talk about the actual terrain aspect. The coaster has a standard height of 160 feet. You know, nothing crazy. You got the first drop, then you go up a hill, then comes the most iconic part of the ride, diving 228 feet under Thunderbolt into a ravine at 85 miles an hour. This single element made Steel Phantom worth saving, and why Phantom's Revenge continues to be a staple to Kennywood. Number 4. Lightning Rod at Dollywood. For the third top 10 video in a row, Lightning Rod has been featured. I guess this coaster really is a perfect ride. And you guys all know what terrain aspect I'm talking about. The quad down, one airtime hill after another, barreling down the mountain, going through the mini treble clef into the brake run. And also the lift hill is based completely on the hillside. Going up the LSM lift hill, down a mini drop, then the main one. Dollywood is perfect for terrain coasters. Tennessee Tornado, Wild Eagle, Lightning Rod, all terrain coasters. It just makes you think, what else will Dollywood get? Because since since the park is situated right by the Smoky Mountains, almost every ride must be a terrain coaster. Number 3, Dragon Mountain at Marineland. At a park that you barely knew existed, has one of the largest aero coasters still left in operation. The coaster is maybe 186 feet. The reason I say maybe because I'm talking about the elevation of the coaster. The number is hard to figure out because it stays so close to the ground, and at the same time may just completely be off the ground. I would describe Dragon Mountain as a Canadian version of the Ultimate. The only difference is Dragon Mountain has a little more going on. It has 4 inversions, including the one and only bow tie. And did I mention this coaster takes up so much land? Dragon Mountain is the record holder for the largest coaster in terms of acreage. Incredibly spread out all 5,500 feet, taking up as much terrain as possible. And talk about a coaster that feels like it's in the middle of nowhere. Number 2, Iron Rattler at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. Fiesta, Texas is known for the quarry that surrounds the entire park on all ends, and the park's choice to incorporate their roller coasters into the natural barrier around the park is brilliant. They may have Superman Krypton coaster, but you just can't compare to Iron Rattler. It has the only twisted drop on an RMC, going on top of the quarry and diving off the quarry multiple times, especially the second time where it dives off then goes under the quarry until it reaches the station. So what terrain coaster can beat Iron Rattler? Well, let's take a trip to Sweden and witness Wildfire at Kolmården. The zoo in Sweden that decided to build an RMC wooden coaster really outdid themselves. Wildfire is in the locations of all locations, with an outrageous view that you can see from the 183-foot tall structure with a 270-degree turnaround. Wildfire has 3 inversions, a 0G roll, 2 heartline rolls, and is jam-packed with sideways turns and airtime hills. The bulk of the ride is staying low to the ground, hugging the jagged terrain, diving off cliffs, and going whichever direction. I have watched the POV for Wildfire multiple times, and I still haven't memorized the entire layout. There's no doubt in my mind that Wildfire is the #1 terrain coaster, no question. So that is my list on the top 10 terrain coasters. If you think there's a terrain coaster that should have made the list but didn't, please let me know in the comments below. Please subscribe if you haven't, and as always, thank you for watching.